Good day. Welcome back to Flight Dreams. You can see we're back in our Cessna 172 for our flight today. Our registration is Charlie, Sierra Golf Mike. We're doing one of my favorite flights, which is from an island in Georgian Bay, which is north of Toronto. You can see it's a grass strip here at the island. We're going from Griffith Island, which is IKO Charlie Yankee Oscar Kilo. And we'll be flying down to Toronto, Billy Bishop Airport, which is the island airport, down to Charlie Yankee Tango Zulu. Let's just have a look here. This is Toronto down here. This is Griffith Island here. Georgian Bay, Lake Huron, just to get some bearing on where we are. So we're going to head direction of 150 from the island for 54 nautical miles down to the Mans VOR. We'll be tuning that in, and then from the Mans VOR we'll be heading down to the island airport. So let's hop in our plane. You can see we're actually in there already. So come on in and join us, and we'll get everything up and running. So let's turn the plane on. I like to get rid of the yoke so we can see around the cockpit better. Turn that warning off. Turn our display on over there on the co-pilot side. And then the way we like to do things is really preferential to me or to you. It's just your preference. Since I get rid of this insert because
TOS system test. Okay.
super. Because the map is over here. That's just telling me that the system is running fine. PFD, I like to always put the wind in here. I like option 3, shows up there. It's coming at 49 degrees at 3 knots. We'll probably take off to the east. Super. Let's go back here. In here. I like to put these references in so that I don't have to remember them all. Well, I fly the Cessna 172 enough that I do. And I like to have the VR note it. And then VY, which is best rate of climb. Note it. It's just for me. Time reference 74 degrees. Let's put here. Flight level change. Nose up. You can see right in here. We're actually going to go up to 74. I'm going to be flying at 3,500 feet today, depending on clouds. We're going to try VFR. Looks like we should be able to make it. Somebody left the landing lights on, all the lights on. Not good. When we shut the plane down last time. So, that looks pretty good. So I want to tune in that VOR before we head out so we can get directly to it. Right there you can see it's 1145. So let's get that tuned in. On nav 1, tune it to 1145. Go too far. There we go. Put it in to swap it out here so it's become active. There it is. That's the Mans VOR, Yankee Mike Sierra. Come back here just to verify Yankee Mike Sierra. Super. Do have Navicraft charts based up also, so we can follow along with our flight. We'll be heading down this way and into Toronto, and right there is the island airport. So I think we're fine. We set up the VOR. We'll figure out later on as we get closer to Toronto what runway they want us to land at, and we'll go from there. Fuel, full tank of fuel. which is great. So let's get ready to get going. So let's turn the beacon on, and I always like to try the the mixture first, make sure it's moving slowly. Put the throttle in and out, everything's working fine. Bring the mixture back, open it up to about there, throttle up half an inch, and looks like we are ready to start. Okay, clear prop. And we got her going. Put mixture all the way in, bring throttle back. Let her settle down. Super. Okay, very short taxi today. As you can see, we just pull straight out. And we can head out. So, let's just put the landing lights on, nav on, and strobe. We can leave the taxi off because we're right there. Nobody here anyway. Pitot switch on. Brake off. And let's pull up, do two things. Pull up the ATC and air traffic control managed by the co-pilot, which is great. I'm just going to depart to the south. Let's announce taxi first.
Charlie Yankee Oscar Kilo Traffic Cessna, Charlie, Sierra Golf Mike is taxiing to runway 28.
That's interesting. The winds, I wouldn't have gone runway 28, but we're not going to. We're going to take off runway 5. It's right in front of us, so that's okay. We normally, in an airport like this, we wouldn't be saying what we were doing. So, brake off. Some throttle. And I am going to come down, reduce the throttle a bit, and come down here. Just so that we have as much runway as possible. Always do that. Now, it's not a very long runway. This is a grass runway on an island. We don't have a lot of runway, so I like to make sure we use as much as possible. Don't need flaps today for the length of this runway. So, everything's all set. We're ready to go. Push the throttle forward gently. And airspeed's alive. Rotate. And we are airborne. No wheels up. Fixed undercarriage in this plane. Calm water today. Try to keep it at this rate of climb. You can see on the left speed tape 73, 74. It equates to about 600 feet per minute. That's great. And we can make our right turn now. And we'll circle back.
Toronto Center Cessna Charlie, Sierra Golf Mike is type Cessna Skyhawk, 2 miles east of Charlie Yankee Oscar Kilo. Request flight following.
Cessna Charlie, Sierra Golf Mike Toronto Center. Squawk 7702.
Squawk 7702 Cessna Golf Mike.
Super. We're just gonna. That was
Cessna Golf Mike radar contact 2 miles east of Charlie Yankee Oscar Kilo 1,500 feet. Altimeter 29.67.
Copy Cessna Golf Mike.
And that is one of the reasons why I stopped talking when we are on ATC, so there might be some information and I changed that we need to change the altimeter 29.67. That'll give us some correct reading on our altitude. So as you can see, we have turned to the right. I'm going to pick up this line here. One thing I want to do too is, oh, there was a bit of a turbulence. I want to get on bearing for now. Nav 1. See, we're 49 miles from nav, and there we are there. Just as a backup. So I moved a little bit to the right, or sorry, to the left. Let's go back. There's Owen Sound down here. Down in here is Owen Sound. I believe that's Owen Sound. No, Wyerton. Just look at the map here. Wyerton. Owen Sound is down. Yeah, that is Owen Sound. Down here. We've already gone past that bay. Change the seat position a bit. See, the winds really shifted. 228, 38 knots, 2,400 feet. So, the goal is to be on this line, and this bar will come in to match this arrow when we get there. Just click the heading button to make sure that it matches where we're going. That way, if I do have to take it off or put it on navigation, use the autopilot, we're already in the heading and we won't be making any turns that we aren't expecting to do. Beautiful day here. Oh look, the moon's still out. Right there. We're only going to 3,500 feet today, so hopefully we'll stay below these clouds. Just trying to get the map out a little bit. That wind certainly is wanting to push us east of our line to the left of our line. I'll start to level her off. We can lower her off here. Try to keep her trimmed here. See here, I'm using this as a guide, and I'm trimming the plane out all the time to help fly at 3,500 feet. I'm going to pull back here on the throttle a bit. I like to fly under the 2,500, and let's zoom in a little bit, and we'll pull the mixture back we're flying there. A little bit of a dance you do. There we go, that's good. A little bit of a dance you do to get everything to so that you're flying level where you want, at the speed you want. So we're creeping up a bit, try and trim it down. With these VFR flights, get a good view of the countryside. With the heading bugs, if we do have to go on to autopilot, then it's there. No surprises. See, the yellow line is telling us the attitude of the plane, and the magenta line is telling us that we're off our course that we want to fly, and we know that because we're heading down to that magenta line. Not a long flight today, which is one of the reasons I do like flying this. Depending on how much time I have to spend on a flight. There we go, we can turn the landing lights off now. Depending on how much time I have to spend on a flight, it's a great flight to do. I will also obviously do it in reverse, where I fly from either the Island Airport in Toronto, Billy Bishop, maybe from Pearson, Brampton, which is just north of Pearson Airport, but up here to Griffith Island, and do the grass landing. A little bit of a challenge on the grass landing. There's no happy lights to help you, let you know whether you're too high or too low. So you certainly have to have the visibility to be able to land on the island. It is totally visual. So while we're going here, let's just have a look at the map. Moving map, see where we are. Right here. So we get down to this magenta line, we'll head a little bit in this direction. Almost paralleling this highway. So you can see here our true airspeed is 122 knots, but our ground speed is 111, and that's because we have this very strong wind coming in from 240 knots this way at us from about 2 o'clock at 42 knots. That's a very strong wind. Let's pull the throttle back a bit so we're under that 2500. Anything above 2500, we're in the yellow. So we will slow a bit. It's fine. You don't want to over rev the engine. Not good for the engine, obviously. Fuel flow is okay. We're doing 120 knots, 121. That's great. The only thing with flying without the autopilot is I don't get a lot of time to look around and look at the countryside, how beautiful it is. And a lot of the time in today's flights, today's world, you don't fly anything but autopilot, and you're really monitoring the systems. It also allows easier navigation. So obviously when I'm flying by hand here, I'm constantly monitoring all my gauges, the attitude of the plane, making sure for some reason we don't dive, such as I've moved the yoke forward, didn't mean to. One of the main differences, obviously, between flying railroad and flying flight simulator is there's no physical sensation. So we miss that. You can see we're bouncing around a bit today. It's a bit of a factor of the wind rather than turbulence, but you don't get that sensation of being bounced around. Certainly not a day that you really want to be having that cup of coffee or tea, whatever your beverage of choice is, without a lid on it. Yeah. See, we're almost at the magenta line here and here, so I'm going to start my turn just gradually. But because we're being pushed from right to left, west to east, we're not going to be wanting to head directly down to man's VOR, because we're going to be being pushed always from right to left, west to east today. So you can see how easy it is to climb, not thinking about it. Almost at 3,600 feet. I didn't even realize I was actually moving the joystick. So I'll just true up that heading again. There we go. Lots of farmland up here, you can see. For those of you who aren't familiar with the airport, or the area rather, Georgian Bay is a large bay which is actually part of Lake Huron, which is one of the Great Lakes. See here, it is a huge body of water, as is all the Great Lakes. See how far we are being pushed to the right, right here, left of the course. That's the wind, so doing that, try to move back to the right. And you can see here we dropped to 3,400 feet. So a little bit tough to do the sightseeing and look around with that sightseeing, monitor all the instruments, make sure we're flying where we should. Now, what's the temperature? The outside temperature here is 6 degrees, so not too bad. The pitot that I put on earlier before we took off, right here, the pitot switch. There's a tube outside the plane, and the wind going in that tube.
Cessna Golf Mike contact Toronto Center on 124.025.
124.025, Cessna Golf Mike. Toronto Center Cessna, Charlie, Sierra Golf Mike 3,700 feet.
Cessna Charlie, Sierra Golf Mike Toronto Center, continue as planned. Altimeter 30.07.
Wow, 3007, that's weird, that's a big jump. But we will tune it in. I'm just going to open this up to make sure, yeah. 3007. Sometime, now see how we've gone. we've gone up because the barometer changed. So we got to bring it back down. I've noticed sometimes in the game, in the flight sim, that you will get these changes in pressure that are very close together, like this. Probably unrealistic. And we'll get back down to a lower pressure, I'm sure. Just check here for a second. See what the pressure is here at the Island Airport. 2968. Toronto, 2968. So we'll get back there. But we have to put in what the pressure is actually where we're flying. That is what the game is giving us. I was explaining the Pitot Tube before ATC came on. So the wind going into the Pitot Tube will tell us how fast we're going. If that ice is up, then obviously we won't know how fast we're going. It is critical to know that. So hooking that switch is basically putting a heater on that tube, keeping any ice away from it. Now with the Cessna 172 that I've got, there aren't any de-icing capabilities on this plane. So often you want to stay out of the clouds. It depends on the temperature. However, it will also depend on time of year. I am rated, instrument rated, so we can fly in the clouds, over the clouds. Changed from a VFR flight, which is visual flight rules, to an IFR instrument flight rules. So that doesn't concern me too much. But the icing does. You get up there, you don't want to get icing, obviously. So I keep my eye on that. This flight is early May. We're using real world weather. So the flight's early May. Chances of icing today are slim, but it is something that I do keep an eye on. If we did happen to get some icing, I would descend and then hopefully get to a warmer layer of air so that the ice will melt. It is extremely bumpy up here today. That's okay, makes for an interesting challenge. See here now, we're 18.7 nautical miles from the man's VOR. Now, once we get past the man's VOR, the next waypoint was the airport, Billy Bishop Airport. So you'll see this will change to indicate that next leg. This will stay the same, pointing to the man's VOR. I certainly am having problems getting over to that ley line today. Scenery is just gorgeous in Flight Sim 2020. is a line of wind turbines down here. I think it's as we get closer to Mansfield, Vance. Oh, there they are over here. Right there. And they are spinning today as you would expect them to be. There's a number of them over there. Producing clean energy, clean power. It's really neat in the game that they have included that feature. I should find out where there are some solar panels. I know down in Arizona, or I think south of Las Vegas, there's a huge solar farm. See if the panels show up in the simulation. They should. All of these homes, farms, buildings that you're seeing here, the roads, the forests, are taken from Bing Maps. So everything matches exactly what's in the real world, where they should be located, what they look like, etc. There's another turbine down here. See it spinning. If you haven't flown with me into Toronto, there's those turbines that we were looking at earlier. If you haven't flown with me into Toronto before, you'll see that as we get close to downtown Toronto, that is what it actually looks like. It is just phenomenal. So if you go to different cities around the world, it's kind of a neat little mini vacation to get away from and actually see what's around. Lots of turbines here showing up here, there, here. See here on the map that it's getting to a lighter color. This represents altitude. Can't put it on a top map also. See, I rarely do that. GPS, top map. See, here's the topographic line. So up on a bit of a plateau, which is why all of these turbines and wind farms are up here. Still a little high, trying to get down, but I do know when we get back into a different air mass that will be too low. So, because I'll change the barometer again, the altimeter, right there. We were looking at 2963 for Pearson and the Island Airport in Toronto. Now it's interesting, it's very windy here today. The blades are actually moving fairly quickly. I've been through turbines and, or by them rather, let's hope not through them. I've been by turbines and those blades are moving slower in the simulation here. So neat that they've been able to simulate that. I did check the chart in advance, so I know that 3,500 feet is the minimum safe altitude that we can fly today. So here, we're now 8 miles from the VOR, and it's just starting to show up here. There's YMS VOR right there. And you can see here I've got this map set for a range of 15 nautical miles. Let's just check how we're doing. RPM down a bit. I can put it up. Fuel flow is fine. Fuel, fantastic. We definitely will have enough fuel to get there at a full tank, as we noted before we left. But I do like to check it. Maybe a leak's happened. Who knows? And there we go. There's, because I have the VOR listed here. The magenta line matches this magenta line there. That is the course. This blue line is pointing directly to the man's VOR. So when we go past the man's VOR, that will swing around and point this way. Clouds do look a little ominous, don't they? Looks like there's rain in them. Hopefully we can get past there. That should be Lake Simcoe. Over here. Let's just go back here. Fly up there. And there it is, Lake Simcoe. Very. Let's go back in here. Sure we're not going anywhere. It looks like it is darker in front of us. I don't know if what Toronto is like. It was supposed to be clear. We'll see. Very light winds coming from the east, which means we could probably land into the west. Depends what the preferred runway is. We'll find that out when we actually get closer to the island airport. Then we'll pull up the chart that has the ILS as landing surface for the runway that we're told to land on. And we'll use the ILS as guidance. We'll use visual going in, but we will not put the plane on approach, where the plane will fly itself on the approach, so we're not using autopilot today. It is very bumpy up here today. As you can see, you've seen some of my flights if you've been with us before for some of the general aviation or the Warbird flights. Very smooth, very calm. Not today. Very windy. It's great that it is actually modeled in the simulation. We will get turbulence, so felt more often in the jets, the A320, 787, etc. But you'll be flying along, you'll drop to 300-500 feet, then you have to climb back up. The autopilot does it for you. But it is modeled. So, I mean, wind shear is also modeled. Here you can see we just completed that leg. So this portion of our leg disappeared. Now we're in that portion. You can see here we're going from man's VOR down to the island airport, Charlie Tango Zulu. 44.1 nautical miles. And here we are there. Man's is to the right, and we're passing it. You can see here that arrow for the VOR is starting to swing around, and we're 1.5 miles, nautical miles, from the VOR, 1.6. And yes, I forget what I was talking about. That's okay. And just a couple of other things to point out on this Garmin glass cockpit. I do like flying the more traditional cockpit with the dials, but this cockpit, which you'll almost see me fly in all the time, provides so much information. So you can see here, this is the leg that we're currently on, the distance. I have to fly 145, bearing 145 actually to get there. Because of the winds today, I'm having to not fly the 145, I'm going to fly to the right of that. It keeps pushing me to the left. Over here, my ground speed is 121. here is the track, the true airspeed 120s, almost the same. The wind's coming almost from our right side. Direct track 144, 142. Great estimated time en route, about 19 minutes to get down to the island airport. Now, Pearson Airport will be off to
Cessna Golf Mike contact Toronto approach on 124.475.
We'll be off to our right.
124.475 for Cessna Golf Mike. Toronto approach Cessna, Charlie, Sierra Golf Mike 3,500 feet. Cessna Charlie, Sierra Golf Mike Toronto approach, continue as planned. Altimeter tree, 0.09er.
Interesting. So, a little bit of sun peeking through here. Right there. So Pearson will be off to our right. On the moving map here, you can see all these circles with the codes on them. They are airports. So if I did have a problem, had to land, let's say for the icing we were mentioning earlier, we could land at one of these airports. That won't be happening today, obviously. So my eyes are constantly scanning the instruments. It's like driving a car where you're looking ahead, then your rear view mirror, looking ahead, left rear view mirror, looking ahead, your right rear view mirror, looking ahead, looking around left and right, and so forth. And I have I do the scan, checking our airspeed, I'm checking our heading versus our course, checking our altitude, checking RPM, fuel flow, fuel quantity. Get to look out, have a bit of a scenic view, and then back. I scan all of that again, and then back over. We do get to look out once in a while. A little pond here. So today it's a little bit bumpy, a little tough to do that. And I am not on autopilot, which makes it even more challenging. So you can see how far we just keep on getting pushed to the east from the wind. And try to get back on that.
Toronto approach Cessna, Charlie, Sierra Golf Mike. Request clearance to transition Charlie airspace. Cessna Charlie, Sierra Golf Mike Toronto approach. Cleared through the Charlie airspace. Cleared through Charlie airspace, Cessna Golf Mike.
Now this is supposed to be real world weather, so I'm a little bit surprised we're getting this altimeter staying there. And all these clouds, but we'll see as we get closer to Toronto, to the island airport, what we actually get. I guess whatever it is, that's what we have to deal with, no matter what. Now, I do have live traffic set on this simulation today, which means any airplanes that we do see are actually happening in the real world. I usually fly with that, not always, but usually that setting. So as we get closer to Pearson here, we are going to have to watch for planes, which we should be doing anyway, but I will have to watch for some of the jets. afternoon. You can see here how it's a little bit lighter. Sun's breaking through there and over here. We will have to watch for the jets, make sure that we aren't in their way. Sometimes air traffic control, well, they will always tell us when we get close. They won't reroute us. They'll keep us to our route that we've actually put in there. In there being in the computer we have filed. Airport down here. Now that's going to be either Buttonville or Downsview. Tough to say at this point which airport that is. Try to swing back here a little more. Get back on this track. It's amazing how we are being pushed to the east today. Very strong wind. See, we've headed into the wind more and our ground speed dropped to 96 knots. I do want to get closer to that track. I'm pulling back on the yoke a bit, I can feel it. So I just want to check there, and you see we had climbed up. We were almost at 3,900 feet, so I'm trying to get it back down to the 3,500 feet that I want to be at. Airport here, and that is probably Toronto. That's probably Pearson. I'm going to head to the left, get back on this line. That would be Pearson. That would be 15 left, 15 right. See the lights, the happy lights. Looks like. But we're not going to Pearson today. We're going downtown Toronto. So this must be Downsview here then. Makes sense for the separation. Downsview Airport was an RCAF, Royal Canadian Air Force airport at one point. You can see we've turned back to the left, and our ground speed went back up to 126. Soon, I just don't have a check now. So we're climbing here. We don't want to do that. Start to descend a bit. See if we can get CYTZ in here, or it's further from you. Might be a little bit too early to get it. There it is. YTZ.
City Tower Cessna, Charlie, Sierra Golf Mike is 24 miles northwest with Echo to land.
Cessna Charlie, Sierra Golf Mike City Tower. Make left traffic runway 26. Altimeter tree 0.08, wind 211 at 16.
Fly left downwind runway 26 Cessna, Golf Mike.
So we're going to be running on 26. Interesting, the barometer. So for some reason, the real world weather is not taking today. It's fine. So runway 26. Let's go over here. YTZ. Let's kick in. Let's see what we can get here for approach 26 ILS. So we want to tune 110.15. Do it here. 110. So we just actually change this so we don't care about the man's VOR anymore. 1.5. Make that the active. A little bit too far away. Once it activates right in here, we'll see the ICW come in. So we want to be 2,000 feet when we get closer. But so that's downview. This should be downtown Toronto here. We'll find it comes into better view. And I will switch over, and might as well do it now. CDI. Switch it to VOR1. This will all kick in once we get close enough to downtown Toronto, which this should be the Island Airport right here. It's the Island Airport. We can just put our seat up a little bit and back down to regular altitude. Yeah, a little annoying with the real world weather. Don't know why it's doing that. Tried to fix it every once in a while after they update the game. Here's another turbine down here. After they update the game, you get some glitches. Yeah, this looks like Humber Bay over here. Buildings showing up. Young and bluer. That we just got an air pocket and we just went way up. So I am going to one of the towers for downtown. After we get past Bay and Blue here, maybe I'll do it sooner. We'll see. Okay, well, I think we'll head over here to the left. Should be Young Shepherd area. Obviously, I'm from the area. This is why I know some of the landmarks so well when we fly other places. I'm not familiar with where the buildings are or where the landmarks are. And this is Highway 401. Main east-west highway going through the north part of Toronto. Nice reflection of the sun here. CN Tower. All the buildings of downtown will show up soon. There's the CN Tower. Track and field. There, another track and field area. That'll be the 400 we're just going over. 400 highway right here. Actually, this should be 407, not 401. My apologies. 401 is just south of Downsview. This is probably 407, which is just on the north side of Toronto, and it's an electronic toll road. So here, glide slope is kicked in. This is our localizer. It will actually turn the other way. This arrow will point west once we get past the island. Interesting that the buildings from downtown, all in here, aren't showing up yet. Just a little bit too far away, I guess. Or maybe I've changed some settings on the cache that I have to look at if something happened. We'll see. Young Shepherd area is well populated. See, I have been descending here. I pulled back on the throttle a bit, just so we'd be starting to come down to the 2,000 feet that we have to be at right here. Capture the glide slope. And it disappeared. And it'll reappear. You can see here the localizer has moved back to the west. So when this green line comes together with that arrow, we are right on line with the runway 26. This is Buttonville Airport. This will be 404 highway. Boy, we are just getting bounced around like crazy here. So can't do much more sightseeing actually. So don't want to fall below the 2,000 feet. Just getting my bearings on downtown. So that's where the airport is, just on the west side of downtown. We'll be flying over Toronto Harbor. As you can see here, we have ICR identified as what we have tuned in, and we know that that is right here. The identification of that ILS, so that's fine. ICR here on nav1, pointing to where it is. That's pointing to where the airport is. So we're descending and getting ready for approach. So I'm going to increase the mixture to be full rich. And landing light, taxi light on. So how far are we? There we go. I think we'll make our turn on base. So I want to go about 180 degrees. I want to run parallel to, or sorry, perpendicular to the runway, not parallel, perpendicular to the runway. I'm going to have to figure out that real world weather why it is not working. Ever since they did the last update, I've had some issues. And it makes it difficult because you want to plan some flights based on weather. You're expecting to have one weather, and then you get something else can ruin your flight. I can always force the weather, which I do sometimes, depending on what kind of flight we're having. I force the weather to be what I want. So you can see here, we're running parallel, again perpendicular to the runway. We are climbing, I don't want to do that. Pull back on the throttle. You can see we are below the glide slope though. Just hit another air pocket. You can see, even though we were descending, we actually went up in our altitude. When this diamond gets centered, that's what we will follow in for our descent. And when this line matches up with the arrow, we'll keep that centered, left and right, and that'll keep us on the runway. Still getting very strong winds here to 35 degrees at 35 knots. This part of Toronto. Downtown, there's the Island Airport right here. I believe this is that Bluffers Park? Yacht Club. Don't quote me on that, I may be wrong. The visual here also is going into. Start to make a bit of a right turn here, just so we're not perpendicular to the runway, so that we can catch the runway easier instead of having to make a hard right turn. So there are the two runways. See this one and this one here. This is the one we're going to be landing on. And it just has the red. That will change, we'll see as we get closer into the localizer. We'll actually see that runway better. Now, depending on how windy it is, as we get down there, closer to the runway, closer to the ground, Harbourfront will be to our right, which is the base of downtown Toronto. This is Lake Ontario, by the way, one of the Great Lakes that you're looking at. The US is off to our left, out there somewhere. Big Lake. So Harbourfront will be off to our left. Scotiabank Arena with the Toronto Maple Leafs play. Rogers Dome, Rogers Centre rather, which is Sky Dome, where the Toronto Blue Jays play. It was the first, if I remember correctly, first sporting arena, at least in North America, that had a retractable roof. So you can see as we get closer to the localizer, our runway is coming in sight. Turn a little bit more. Interesting, we hit those turbulence. I wasn't touching the throttle at all, but we had, the throttle had gone from the 2400 RPM to 22. Interesting. So we want it to be at 2000, which is fine. We're above it at 2450. This is the marker that I'm using right now. That marker, this marker, and my visual. for those of you who have been doing the landing challenges in Flight Sim, one of the first landing challenges was the Billy Bishop Airport. And for those of you who don't fly in Flight Sim, but you've been watching these videos, sorry, I'm just checking all my instruments. That's part of the game simulation. They do have landing challenges if you want to do them. Many different styles that you can fly in this game. Sometimes, general aviation, if that's all you want to do. You can fly the airliners if that's what you want to do. You can fly a mix, which I obviously do. You can do warbirds. Many ways to customize your experience. Now the cache, you can see the downtown just looks terrible at the moment, but as we get closer, those buildings should look better. So I'm going to have to do something about the cache, because it should look better from here. They should look realistic already. So I have to figure that one out. So you can see here we're a little bit to the left of where we need to be, but we can still be here on the glide slope at this altitude. Very strong winds. Do we have ATIS here? ATIS is, we do, weather. Hopefully it will give it to us. Not always. 133.6. Let's see if we can tune it in. Six. As we're being on autopilot would be far better, but we haven't gone on autopilot all the way, so let's see if we actually get ATIS.
Toronto Island Airport information, Echo 1200 Zulu. Wind 209er at 16. Visibility 9er. Sky condition. Few clouds at 800 feet, few clouds at 4,600 feet, few clouds at 11,700 feet. Temperature 8. Dew point 10. Altimeter 29.68. ILS runway 26 in use. Landing and departing runway 26. Cessna Golf Mike cleared to land runway 26. Wind 209er at 16.
Said it was 268 now.
Clear to land runway 26 Cessna, Golf Mike.
There we go. See how it changed. Here we got the PAPI lights, red and white, which is good. Pretty good on the localizer, off a bit. That's okay. We're still a little bit low for the glide slope, not too bad. So we got the clear to land. I am going to put flaps full down. They are here. There, that's the indication. When you do that in this plane, it pitches you up. So I gotta come down. So you can see here a turbine. So downtown over at the Canadian National Exhibition. Downtown looking pretty good. It's all in shadow. Too bad it wasn't sunny today. Looks far better in sun. And the CN Tower right above our compass. So I'm using a mixture of my visual in here, the PAPI lights, red and white, which I want to keep. It tells me I'm coming in not too steep, not too shallow. And this indication for glide slope, this indication for localizer. Sometimes in the game they're not perfect, the instrument localizer and glide slope that you're getting. So pull the throttle back a bit. So I use all three. Now when you're landing in big jets, low visibility, you could have ceiling of 500-600 feet. You just use your instruments obviously because you can't see anything other than cloud. There's Sky Dome right there. That's the retractable roof stadium where the Leafs play. Toronto Maple Leafs is down in here. This is all harborfront in here. Couple yacht clubs over on the island. Okay, so I'm going to have to pay a little bit more attention here. Bring the airspeed back a little bit over the left. A little low, you can see the PAPI lights went to red. And by the indication of the green diamond, I was a little bit too low. It's good they've gone red and white again. I believe the saying is, if it's all white, you're all right. If it's all red, you're dead. Because if it's all red, you're too low, and you're going to go into the ground prior to the end of the runway over the threshold. So a little bit tough on saying, but considering it's your life
500.
that we're worried about, I think it's a good saying. So that was the autopilot going out 500 feet above ground. I've pulled back on the throttle some more. You probably heard the engine. That turbine, wind turbine, which you see off to the right at 1 o'clock, part of the Canadian National Exhibition, or maybe not part of the Canadian National Exhibition, on the grounds of the CNE. So there we are. Speed's good. Pulling back on the throttle a little bit more. Back on the stick a bit so that here we are. Throttle off. I'm going to flare. We don't have a lot of runway here. Just put her down smoothly. Go off the end of the runway. There we go. Go off the end of the runway, you're into the water. Certainly not what we want to do. You can see there's a windsock there showing us the direction. Could have gone
Cessna Golf Mike turn, next taxiway.
We shall do that. And I have the ribbon on just to help us, show us where the game wants us to go. Okay, we can flaps up. Because the game doesn't always put us where we want to go. When I'm in the game, using air traffic control in the game, I have this ribbon on when I'm flying on VATSIM, which is virtual air traffic.
Cessna Golf Mike contact ground on 121.7.
Simulator, I don't have this line. I turn the
121.7 for Cessna Golf Mike.
taxi lights off, so we actually have to put it over. She will not do that. Automatic and request taxi to parking.
Ground Cessna Charlie Sierra Golf Mike taxi to parking.
Pitot Tube,
Cessna Charlie,
come off.
Sierra Golf Mike taxi to general aviation parking using taxiway Bravo.
Taxiing to general aviation parking using taxiway Bravo Cessna Golf Mike.
So I'm just going to follow this in. Ground speed here is 11 knots. We never want to taxi too fast. Make sure nothing's coming on that side. No. It's kind of a neat condo here that has a bridge between the two. Hopefully we'll see it, will we? No. Darn it. Oh, it has two towers, and there's a bridge that goes between the two towers, enclosed, obviously. Now this, looking a little weird where they want us to go. Sometimes it is weird where they want you to go, but we'll just follow this around. won't hit that light standard. That would be silly. Try not to get close to that worker here. Let's see. Control tower here. Landing light off. I turned the taxi light off. That was silly. I should have kept it on. I would have it off now because it would be too bright. It'll go right into the marshal's eyes here. Throttle off. And there we go. There we go. Perfect. Parking brake. Set. We'll pull back on the mixture. That will cut the prop. Prop is cut. That warning sign goes off. It's annoying. Beacon off, nav off, strobe off. Well, there we go. We are now in Toronto at the Island Airport. Let's jump out. Have a look around. Not sure if you can hear the birds. Hopefully you can. And a great flight, as I said, is one of my favorite flights to do if I don't have a lot of time. If I have shorter time, I often just do circuits to keep my practice up on touch and goes, on landing, takeoff, etc. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed today's flight from Griffith Island down to Billy Bishop Airport in Toronto. And as always, may you have 3 green and the wind at your back.